A very warm welcome to you as you join us on today's episode of Tax Matters. The 21st Annual Tax Conference is here, and we do hope that you have packed your bags ready for Abuja.
On this episode, we are going to give you more tips on what you need to be a part of the largest gathering of tax practitioners in Africa. We are also staying with the matter of value-added tax. Yes, value-added tax. A few days ago, the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN, held a sensitization seminar on the proposed increase in the rate of VAT. A report of that is also part of the offering on today's episode of Tax Matters. My name is Chiamaka Ohauchi.
And I am Pearl Naimaka. The program is Tax Matters. Welcome once again. As we said in the introduction, on Tuesday the 16th of April 2019, the CITN hosted a sensitization seminar on the proposed VAT rate increase and the National Housing Fund Act. To lead the discussion was a panel of eminent scholars and tax practitioners comprising of Mr. M.A.C. Dike, past president CITN and a retired director at the FIRS, Professor Abiola Sani, professor of taxation at the University of Lagos, and Mr. Aziz Alatoye, a chartered accountant and tax consultant. Given the rationale for hosting the seminar, Vice President of the Institute, Olajumoke Simplis, had this to say.
We must all work together to assist government towards achieving economic growth and development. All stakeholders, including professional bodies, advocacy groups, and civil society organizations, have useful roles to play in shaping government policy direction in a manner that does not limit government's capacity to generate revenue to fund governance and development.
The session was chaired by the immediate past president of the CITN, Professor Abiola Teju Shomori.
I happen to be among those who did some work on the introduction of bringing VAT into being in Nigeria, also with Mr. Dike, because it was actually a study group of which I had the honor to be the secretary that brought in value-added tax into Nigeria. So the rate that Nigerian proposed was 5%. The IMF and the World Bank said no, that 5% was too low. You cannot have 5%. You won't be able to collect more than 2.1 billion in its first year of introduction. But Nigeria said we cannot have any rate higher than 5%. Mr. Jake Naejo happened to be the chairman of Federal Revenue Service at that time. FRS insisted that the rate must be 5%. So it stayed at 5%, and Nigeria started collecting at 5%. We had two rates at that time, the standard rate of 5%, there was also the zero rate. By the time the first collection came out in 1993, Nigeria collected 6.1 billion. So the IMF and the World Bank that said that Nigeria could not collect anything beyond 2.1 billion, they kept quiet. So since that time, the VAT is one of the taxes that has promoted economic growth. At the end of this get-together, we put our recommendations together and send it to the presidency.
The ball having been set rolling with these opening remarks, the panelists went straight to business.
Chief Dike, what's your reaction about the planned increase in VAT and the National Housing Fund bill? Can you see any relationship between the two?
Why we are still, collecting so much as VAT is because we are operating a model that is Nigerian. We are neither gross product model nor full consumption model. Because on the full consumption model of VAT, you have all inputs claims are recoverable from your output. And therefore, you don't need too much interpretation. But in our own case in Nigeria, you are restricting recoverability of inputs on capital items and then input on what's this other item. If you are not in manufacturing, for instance, you're a consultant and you render opinions, You pay VAT on the telecommunication services. You pay VAT on the paper. You pay VAT on the toner, so much, but you cannot recover the VAT you paid when you charge to your client. And therefore, you are being asked to absorb that cost, alternatively, against your income tax. So you're now carrying VAT, input VAT, to expense against income tax. Look at our petroleum. You say that export is zero-rated, but because of the heavy, dose of inputs on petroleum operations, Nigeria said, okay, fine, we are not going to treat export of crude oil as zero-rated. It should be exempted. And import of exemption is that you now have to expense the input VAT on petroleum operations against Petroleum Profit Tax Act. So we have a lot of distortion in Nigeria. So I think we need to go back to the drawing board, in my view, if we can get things right.
Professor Abiola Sani and other panelists brought a completely new dimension to the discussion.
I think we need to interrogate whether there is indeed a proposal for VAT increase. Because he who asserts must prove. Proposal by who? In what form? Is it in form of news report? As a lawyer, I will not go by news report alone. If there is a proposal, it must be in the form contemplated by the law. And that must be in the form of a bill before the National Assembly. My understanding is that the report in the newspaper, social media about the increase has also been equally debunked. Some people in the government circle have said, no, there is no such. When the government was presenting its budget, he didn't mention anything about VAT increase. When he was seeking our vote for second term, there was no mention about increase of any tax. The national tax policy is unequivocal about the need for the executive to clearly communicate any proposed changes in tax policy. We have not seen anything like that. There is a process for increase of tax rates. And until we have a formal proposal in form of a bill, we can take it as an idea that is still incubating.
I don't get it. Is it saying that the seminar was not necessary?
No, I think he's simply saying that until there's a concrete proposal for an increased rate of VAT, for example, by way of an executive bill from the executive arm of government to the National Assembly, or a private member's bill from a member of the National Assembly to that same effect, we should not be prancing about. Having said that, Professor Sani went ahead to discuss the issue at hand.
So on the narrow issue of VAT increase, my submission is that it's not a new thing. Like MAC and Professor Shomori said, since 1993, the rate had been 5%. Even at inception, the IMF said it wasn't feasible to administer VAT at 5%. But if we had pitched it too high, we probably would not have made a success of it the way we did. Because in our backyard in Ghana, introduction of VAT resulted in riot. And VAT so far, apart from the constitutional aspect, has been perhaps one of the most best managed taxes in Nigeria. But having said that, a lot of advocacies have been made for the increment. And I understand that the National Tax Policy Implementation Committee also made a recommendation for VAT increase. The bill had been approved by the National Executive Council, but it has not gone to the National Assembly. But if you ask for my personal view, I'm in favor of the position that in a parlous economy such as this, in a time when the economy is still tottering, when we are struggling to get the fundamentals right, increment of tax rate is not the best.
And from Mr. Latoye?
We can talk from today till tomorrow on finding solution to increment in the VAT rate. But if we don't increase the VAT rate, our problem also is not likely going to be solved. If you ask me, in the ease of tax collection, because indirect taxes are easier to be collected than direct taxes. Assuming a situation where our income tax rate is even 10%, CIT from 30 to 10%, and VAT is, let's say, 15% or thereabouts. From VAT of revenue of 1.1 trillion, that means it's going to be times 3, isn't it? Times 3 of that, you will get almost 3.3, trillion from only VAT. So whatever you have from income tax, you add it to it, you've already gotten 50% of the revenue. So it can be that easy, and it's easier to collect. So I'm strongly in support of the increment, a balanced one, of which you have to increase, but you have to reduce the other side, so that we balance that, not to create hardship for the people.
VAT, Value Added Tax, is a tax paid on all goods and services and remitted by the seller of the goods or provider of the service to government. 5% VAT is added to the total cost of goods and services in Nigeria, and when remitted to government, is used for funding development. The VAT you pay will be used by government to develop our transport infrastructure like roads and railway lines, to continually improve our educational sector by building more schools and upgrading existing ones, to provide adequate security and a better quality of life for us all. Pay your VAT. Make your contributions to the development of Nigeria. It pays to pay your tax. This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service.
Welcome back. We are still staying with the CITN seminar. The audience also had the floor.
What I would just like to recommend is that, like it has been said, that we should have different layers of VAT. Those items that are very necessary, that are not luxurious, should be the rate of VAT should be left for 5%, while other luxurious items should be given different level of percentage as tax.
On the VAT, in many jurisdictions, I think I align with the professor that it is not, we should have strata that if it's going to be increased, it should be for luxury items. But the basic should stay as it is, or like even food items should be exempted. And the more luxury items, like those who have private jets or do that, you fly first class, you should pay higher VAT.
So much has been said about the desirability or otherwise of an increase in the rate of VAT in Nigeria. Ardent viewers of this program will recall that in the last few weeks we have focused on this matter. We have been sampling opinions of the good people of Nigeria. Why are we doing this? We have only one interest, and that is the interest of Nigeria. It is obvious that we need money. We need more revenue to meet the increasing needs of the good citizens of Nigeria. You may wonder why we're talking this way. The call, or the supposed call for an increase in the rate of VAT, has been denied. Yes, it's been denied, but it has refused to go away.
As you have seen from what transpired at the CITN seminar, if the government says that an increase is not being planned, then what is the problem? But we cannot let this matter rest because, like we said earlier, our interest is the interest of Nigeria, and we are convinced that this matter will not go away. Therefore, even as the panelists at the CITN seminar canvassed for a downplaying of the matter, the participants still consider it worth discussing. Our crew therefore decided to speak to some of those in attendance on the matter. Do you support an increase in the rate of VAT?
In the absence of, that is as we speak, the absence of any other source by which the government can increase revenue, I support an increase in VAT. I support an increase in VAT, but just like has been mentioned in the seminar, can be graduated, does not need to be made flat on everything. On luxury items, can be as high as 10%, and that is even trying to achieve one of the objectives of taxation, making the rich to fund the poor.
Do you support an increase in the rate of VAT?
Yes, increase in VAT for luxury goods. Because what is VAT? VAT is on consumption. If you don't consume, you won't pay. Me, I don't consume champagne, so I can't pay. I want to eat amala, I eat it in my house, so I won't pay. So generally, it should remain at 5%, but for luxury items, it should be increased. Then, let us look also at the company's income tax. Decrease the company's income tax from probably 30 to 20. So we move from direct tax to indirect tax, because indirect tax is so easy to collect. Very easy to collect. If you don't consume, you won't pay. And people will consume. Even the low-income group, like this 30,000 that they are being given now, you will see them go to ShopRite to go and buy. And if they go to ShopRite to go and buy, they'll pay VAT.
For the government to also generate more revenue, what other sources do you think the government can tap into?
Now, let me tell you, the government is not even harnessing 60% or maybe 70% of expand the tax base. This present government is doing a lot on that. They are expanding the tax base. And that is why you have seen that in the recent time, the highest revenue that has been collected by FRS was the 5.3 trillion. And it is because substantially they have expanded the tax base. The chairman of FRS has been saying it. He's been talking about it. That's why you have the VAs. That's why you have the VOAs. Now they are even going as far as saying, okay, if your turnover is so much and we do not see the commensurate rate of tax that you have paid, we use dim income. It's trying, and the high net worth individuals, the tax on them, yes, they should pay. And they are already being dragged into the net. Now, if you buy a car and you go and register, Lagos State will congratulate you and say, we have seen the car that you have bought. We hope that this improvement in your standard of living will be reflected in your income tax. So there is no hiding place anymore for anybody. The BVN, the team, has brought a lot of people into TaxNet, and that is it. Once we get that right, consolidate the data of everybody. Consolidate. Once you consolidate the data, you catch everybody. As money passes through your account, they use searchlight and catch you. So there is no hiding place.
Even at the rate we are operating now, how many people were dragged into that tax net? There are lots of companies outside there. Lots of people collecting the VAT are not rendering to the appropriate place. So the problem is not with the rate, it is with trying to administer what it is presently. And if the must increase, it should be on luxurious goods.
If we can balance this against some certain factors, increase in VAT will be welcomed by the populace. For instance, people are very much concerned with their propensity to save. So if you are making them spend more money by way of paying more taxes, there should be a commensurate decrease in the taxes on income generally. So their income base can be expanded and they are able to pay the increase in the consumption taxes.
Okay, now what other sources can the government tap into to get more revenue?
Okay, for instance, I believe the government can do can expand their tax net by ensuring that they get to the grassroots. More incentive or more programs like the VATs can be made expanded to include more of the individuals who earn personal income on their own businesses and even on low income scale. So if, for instance, the income tax reduces from say 24% to 19%, for instance, there will be more tendency for the income earner to own up and pay taxes. And a lot of things should depend on your tax clearance certificate. So if you know that you're going to require your TCC to get access to loans, to get to process your C of O, for example, to get to do more businesses, an individual will be motivated to pay more taxes, and you'd have covered a wider populace. On the other hand, whatever consumption or whatever goods we are buying into, the individual will be ready to pay whatever increase, could say from VAT from 5% to even 10%, we're willing to pay it because there should be some way to balance it. And again, the government can think about ways where they can expand the access to a better standard of living for people, and that should motivate them to pay more taxes when the standard of living is better generally.
What is desirable now is to expand the tax base where more people will come to the tax net of paying VAT. There are still so many activities, both in production and in services, that are not captured under VAT. So it's expected of the government to do the needful by expanding the base. Then look at other taxes which are equally direct that should be reviewed. Personal income of the populace should be decreased. If the personal income is decreased, people will have more money for goods and services, and their standard of living will improve.
You support an increase on VAT?
Well, the increase that I support, not standard increase. I'm not supporting that there should be increase in standard rates. What I'm supporting is that there can be a second rate of VAT. The VAT rate of 5%, it should be left as it is, but we can now impose a second rate, which will be for the luxurious items. We can't run away from increasing rate of VAT. We will increase it. The time is when I don't know. And there's no time that everybody will say it is right. Anytime government increases rates of VAT, people will say we are not ready. It's not only in Nigeria, it has happened in so many countries. Anytime there's an increase in rate of tax, not only VAT, people will say we are not ready. When are they going to be ready? And the economy has to move. The economy cannot be static. But my own advocate is that let there be, the increase should only be on luxurious items.
From the seminar and from the Vox Pop, there seems to be consensus. 1. Expand the VAT net. Get more people to pay VAT and get the collecting agents to remit. 2. Adopt multiple rates for VAT. 3. If you must increase the rates of VAT, lower the rates of income taxes. I think we can confidently say that we have a memo to the president.
Maybe you are going to take the opportunity of the annual tax conference to take the memo to Aso Rock.
No, it has to go to Mr. Fowler first. And talking about going to Abuja, the 21st Annual Tax Conference kicks off in the evening of Tuesday, the 23rd of April with an hospitality night, while the formal opening takes place in the morning of Wednesday, the 24th of April. And as you know, that is the biggest gathering of tax practitioners and tax administrators in Africa. See you in Abuja. It promises to be an exciting time.
And of course, we will see you viewers on this program next week. And you can be sure of a blue-by-blue account of the proceedings at the annual tax conference. Thank you for watching and have a beautiful week ahead.
Bye for now.